The first time I noticed him in that way, I brushed it off. Just a passing thought, I told myself. Nothing serious. But that moment didn't fade like I expected. Instead, I kept watching him, really watching. The way he moved confidently through the house, how his eyes seemed to follow me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. It was hard to ignore. Once I noticed, it was impossible to forget. And worse, I didn't even try to stop. It began subtly. He'd stay longer in the kitchen while I made my morning coffee, leaning against the counter with that slight, knowing smile. He didn't say much, but his quiet presence spoke volumes. The space between us started to shift, something unspoken, something risky. One evening, my husband called to say he'd be late again. Another lonely dinner. I should have been used to it, but the ache in my chest never got lighter. I hung up, sighed, and tried to shake off the emptiness that had become so familiar. "You don't seem surprised," a voice said behind me. I turned to see him at the doorway, arms crossed, that same unreadable look on his face. "I'm not," I replied quietly. "Work always comes first." He watched me for a moment and then gave a little smile. "That's a shame." The way he said it, it sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't pity. It was something deeper, something that stirred something in me. "You shouldn't say things like that," I said, trying to keep calm. "Like what?" he asked, stepping closer. His eyes stayed locked on mine. I wanted to look away. I should have, but I didn't. "This isn't funny," I warned. He tilted his head slightly. "Who said I was joking?" My heart raced. I turned away, gripping the counter. I needed to end this, whatever it was, before it became something more. "I think you should go out tonight," I said, keeping my tone light. "Meet up with your friends. Enjoy yourself." "I'm already enjoying myself," he said, voice low and sure. I froze. There was no teasing anymore, just a quiet intensity. After a long pause, he said, "But you should know something." When I turned back, his expression had changed. He wasn't smirking anymore. He looked serious, grounded. "I don't think I want to stop," he said. I should have been furious. I should have told him to leave, but I didn't. I stood there, heart pounding, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. And that was the scariest part. I told myself I didn't want it to go further, but deep down, I wasn't so sure. To escape that thought, I kept myself busy. I ran errands, filled my day with chores, and made small talk with my husband, anything to avoid thinking about how much his presence had affected me. But distraction only works for so long. One evening, I stepped out hoping the night air would clear my head. That's when I saw him, again, with no shirt on, training under the soft glow of the garden lights. I should have walked away, gone back inside, but I didn't move. I just stood there, watching. The way he moved, calm but powerful, pulled me in. His muscles flexed smoothly, his movements confident and sharp. And then I realized he knew. He was aware of me standing there. I saw it in the way he slowed down, in how he stretched more deliberately, shoulders rolling like it was part of a performance. Then he turned. His skin glistened with sweat, and there it was, that teasing grin. "You don't have to hide," he said, grabbing a towel. I shook my head quickly. "I'm not hiding." He stepped forward, closing the gap between us far too easily. "Then why do you always run?" he asked. My stomach twisted. "This isn't a game," I said, my voice shaky. "Didn't say it was," he replied smoothly. "But I think you're pretending you're okay when you're not." I should have walked away, should have ended it, but something inside me held me in place. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was how he saw me, like I wasn't invisible, like I was someone worth seeing. "Stop," I whispered, not a command, more like a quiet request. He didn't stop. Instead, he reached out, fingertips brushing against mine. It was such a small touch, but it sent a rush through my entire body. I should have backed away, but I didn't, couldn't. "You feel it too," he said under his breath. Every thought in my head screamed that this was wrong, but my body had already answered. Just then, thunder rolled through the sky. The wind picked up. Rain began to fall. I took a step back, heart pounding. "This can't happen," I said, barely finding my voice. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. The way he looked at me said everything. It had already happened. I turned away, went back inside, and shut the door behind me with trembling hands. Rain beat against the windows like the thoughts swirling in my mind. I pressed my fingers to my lips, still feeling the memory of his touch. I wanted to blame him for making me feel things I shouldn't, but deep down, I knew. I had been the one watching first. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his touch again, heard his voice, saw the way he looked at me, like he understood me in a way no one else did. I told myself it was just the rain, just the tension, but part of me knew it was something more. The next morning, when I walked into the kitchen, he was already there. He didn't speak at first, just watched me as I poured my coffee. The silence between us was heavy, filled with everything we hadn't said. "You didn't run this time," he said quietly. I held the cup, fingers trembling. "There's nothing to run from." He gave a slow smile. "You sure about that?" I wanted to end it, to draw a line, but then he stepped just close enough to brush past me, his hand briefly grazing my waist as he reached for the coffee pot. It could have been an accident. It wasn't. I felt the heat of that touch across my entire body, and this time, I didn't try to hide it. I knew I had to walk away, get out before things went too far. But just as I took a step back, he leaned in close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath on my skin. "You keep saying this can't happen," he whispered, "but you've never said you don't want it to." I should have said no. I should have turned around and left, but I didn't. I just stood there, heart racing, caught in a moment I couldn't break on my own. Then suddenly, boom, a loud crack of thunder shook the walls. The lights flickered and dimmed. The storm was back, louder and more intense than before. And so was he. His hand reached out, fingers gently wrapping around my wrist, like a question I hadn't answered yet. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. And when he drew me closer, his touch was steady, not demanding, but full of intent. A final chance for me to stop what we both knew was coming. And when he kissed me, soft at first, then with more urgency, I didn't stop him. I leaned in. I let go. The taste of coffee lingered between us, warm and familiar, and everything I tried to ignore came rushing to the surface. In his arms, I forgot about the rules, the boundaries, and the weight of right and wrong. I was just present, alive. For the first time in years, what followed was a blur. Quiet moments, shared glances, whispers we barely dared to speak aloud, each one a secret tucked carefully away between us. I told myself I should feel guilty, but I didn't. I felt something deeper, like I was finally being seen. He had a way of looking at me, as if he could see through the version of myself I showed the world. And maybe that's why I couldn't walk away, even when I knew I should have. My husband didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. He was always buried in work, too far removed from the pieces of me that were falling apart right in front of him. He never caught the stolen glances or the still air between passing shoulders, but someone else did, and he never let me forget it. When my husband left on a short business trip, I promised myself nothing would happen again, that I'd stay distant, that I'd be stronger. But the sound of footsteps in the hallway shattered that plan. A quiet knock. I shouldn't have opened the door, but I did. He stood there, silent, unreadable. Shadows moved across his face as the night air hummed around us. "You've been avoiding me," he said quietly. I swallowed. We both know why. He raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Do we?" I turned away, gripping the edge of the dresser. This isn't right. Then why does it feel like it is? I wanted to fight it, to say something that would make it stop. But the truth? I didn't believe my own words anymore. When he reached out, I didn't move. His touch was calm, grounding, familiar, and dangerously comforting. And when he kissed me again, I let him. The next morning came too fast. I woke early, his arm draped across me, the weight of everything we'd done pressing on my chest like fog. I got dressed quietly, trying not to wake him. The house was still, shadows stretching across the walls as sunlight crept in. I needed to breathe. I stepped out into the hallway and froze. My husband stood at the bottom of the stairs, his suitcase in hand. He wasn't supposed to be back. We locked eyes. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then his gaze drifted past me, toward the bedroom door behind me, still slightly ajar. He didn't need to say it. He knew. After a beat, his voice came low and even. I thought so. Then he turned and walked away. The hours that followed were quiet, unbearably so. I waited for anger, for questions, for anything, but there were no raised voices, no accusations, just silence. He moved through the house like someone who had already left. Later that night, I found him in his study, a glass in hand, eyes locked on something far away beyond the window. I hovered in the doorway, unsure of what to say. "I'm sorry," sounded hollow, so I stayed silent. After a long pause, he spoke without looking at me. "How long?" And the weight of that question filled every corner of the room. I swallowed hard. "It doesn't matter." He let out a short, bitter laugh. "No, I guess it doesn't." When he finally turned to face me, his expression was unreadable. "Do you love him?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it again. I wasn't sure, and that, in itself, said everything. His gaze darkened, resignation passing through him like a shadow. "I see," he said quietly. He placed his glass down slowly, carefully, then walked past me without saying another word. I didn't stop him. The next morning, his suitcase was gone. No note, no goodbye, just absence, just silence. I stood in the foyer, surrounded by stillness, feeling the weight of everything I had done pressing into my chest. I should have felt relief. I should have felt free. But all I felt was hollow. A week passed. We drifted through the house like ghosts. My stepson and I barely spoke. When we did, it was like we were strangers. Our tension no longer hidden, but layered with confusion and quiet regret. One evening, I found him in the kitchen, staring out the window. His face gave away nothing. I hovered near the doorway, unsure if I should speak. "What happens now?" I asked softly. He didn't answer right away. When he finally turned, his eyes were cautious, guarded. I don't know, he said. That honesty caught me by surprise. And in his eyes, for the first time, I saw something I hadn't expected: vulnerability, a reflection of the doubt I felt myself. We stood there in silence for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, he reached out and took my hand. And I let him. Because despite everything, the guilt, the choices, the silence, I still couldn't bring myself to walk away.